everybody. Hi. It is the 29th for us, so it's the 30th for you, which means there's only one more vlog after this. There's the end of the year vlog, and that's it. The year is over, and Vlogmas is complete. That's exciting.
And you'll never vlog again.
That's not true. That's not true. I've been thinking about that, about like whether I want to do like weekly ones or because people seem to really like them. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We just finished doing a stream. We played Overcooked and we played Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. What did you think?
I like Overcooked.
You've played Overcooked before.
I've played Overcooked before. I actually first played it when I was on PJ Sultan.
That's right. I have a question for you though. If you've played it before, why were you so bad? We actually did pretty good. I think we were pretty coordinated.
We 3-starred almost all of them first try.
Yeah, we did. So we played Overcooked, which was super fun. I can't imagine. You played it 4-player or just 2?
2.
Okay, yeah, because you can play it 4-player, right?
Yes.
Jesus.
I think in 4-player it's 2 teams. So you're competing.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Yeah. That was fun. I thought it was. I liked that a lot better than Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. That game felt like it would work better with 4 people than with 2.
There was definitely a lot of fumbling around tasks. I think that the chaos was partially like intentional and partially. Sorry, I had to sneeze.
Sorry, you were saying?
I think that the chaos in Lovers in Dangerous Space-Time was partially intentional and partially just because there wasn't enough people for what the game wanted you to do. Yeah,
it's a delicate balance between. So in the game, you're piloting a spaceship, and there's like 6 or 7 different stations, and you have to run around in the ship, piloting and shooting 4 different guns, and using the shield and doing all that stuff. And it felt to me like, we were stretched a little too thin with 2 players. But I could also see it being too easy with 4. It depends on how the difficulty ramps up. But Overcooked was so good. That was super fun. I would totally play that again.
My thumbs are sore.
Yeah, I've had console claws for days because of Celeste, and like I went away to Kelowna and I came back and my thumbs still hurt from the damn wind level in Celeste. So it just added to that. But it was fun. That was good. And now we are going to pack up our shit and we're going to go to the theater and finally go see. Was it Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
We're going to go see Spider-Man, and everybody I have seen talk about it on the internet has been like, this is the best. It's an awesome superhero movie. It's better than even the live-action ones that came out this year. So that's pretty cool. I would say that I'm not really a big Spider-Man fan. Like, my experience with Spider-Man is like the 90s cartoon, and then the recent video game with a big gap in the middle. Because I think when I was like watching the cartoon, the comics were doing the kind of like post Todd McFarlane, like Venom is an anti-hero thing, and I wasn't really about that.
I actually read the Spider-Verse comics.
Oh, cool.
Because they came out like a few years ago when I was working at a comic book store. I think they're different from this, but the main idea of like a bunch of spider people stuck together.
Yeah, because that happened in the comics too, right? Like there was like the Spider-Man clone, and there was the like weird 6-armed version of Spider-Man, and like
there's Spider-Gwen, there's Miles Morales,
Spider-Man, right? But that's
Peter
a whole
Parker, Spider-Man.
That's a whole separate thing.
Ben Reilly.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
That's what I'm thinking of, because there's the Spider clone, whatever the saga where it was like in the 90s there was a bunch of Spider-Man, and then this is like another thing. Listen, everybody in New York got bit by a radioactive spider, and they're all spider people now. Diva as a Spider-Man, and Spider-Ham, and Spider-Noir, which I don't like.
I'm just excited for Spider-Man Noir because of this different style of animation.
Yeah.
Because they're animating each character in its own different style, depending on how it's drawn, and Spider-Man Noir is a very different style than the rest of the characters.
Yeah, so it should be cool. That'll be fun. We'll go see that, and then you want to get some ramen?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get some ramen, and then that's it. That's our day, and then tomorrow we'll film one last vlog, and be done with it, and then it'll be 2019. So, cool. All right, let's go to the movies. just got back from the theater and from ramen, and we watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and we ate ramen into my stomach verse. It was pretty good. So, thoughts on the film?
I thought it was fucking amazing.
It was really good. Yeah, it was fucking good.
It's like hands down the best animated film I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And in my top 3, my nebulous top 3, of which I will only name one, favorite movies of all time, there is an animated film in there, and that is Akira. Akira is one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably my favorite animated movie of all time, but I would say that technically, like from a visual standpoint, I think that this movie was better than Akira. Visually.
It's like, I'm not an animator and I'm not an artist, but some of the best, if the best animation work I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was weird. Like we watched it not in 3D, and as soon as we were done, Blue Jay said, "Oh, we got to go watch this in 3D because I feel like you're right. Like there would be this totally other experience." It was the best and most seamless integration of the feeling of a comic book in a visual format I've ever seen. I don't know if you remember, there were these like motion comics that they tried to do in the 90s, or like late 90s, early 2000s. They were really bad. It was like, here's a panel, whoosh, here's a different panel.
Yeah.
And they were like not good at all.
There's actually a newer one, I think it's called Made Fire, that tried to do a similar thing. They had like sound attached.
Yeah.
You had to download an app. Yeah.
And then like you would get movies like Watchmen, where they were like, let's just take the comic and try to storyboard the movie using the comic, and then it doesn't work either. But this felt like, and I talk about this in game design all the time, it felt like every piece, whether it was the soundtrack or every visual cue or beat, the writing, all of it moved in the same direction in a really nice way. And I was surprised at how much of an impact the animation style had on my enjoyment of the film. Like, I've seen a bunch of movies that are like, here's one animation style and it shifts a little bit, and then here's a different one, or like here's a sequence in a different animation style. Madoka does that a ton. But in this, it was like every second they would flip between this kind of Pixar-ish looking like 3D with shading thing to like a flat 2D image interposed behind it, and like just the hitting like notes one after another. It was magnificent. I had such a great time.
Plus, like, it's fucking high time that we had a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie, because he is so much better as a character for this kind of era as a Spider-Man than Peter Parker is. Like,
well, and it was great because I think it did justice to both of them, right? Yeah. Like, help me with the continuity. So the universe that it's set in is the same as, and we'll try not to spoil anything from the movie. It's the same continuity as Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
No.
Yeah, because at the beginning, he's like talking about stuff that happened in the Spider-Man movies. There's a bunch of visual shots where he's like holding the train and he does the upside down kiss. That Spider-Man is the Spider-Man from the Sam Raimi movies.
Okay, right. Well, I'm bad with the movie. Like, I don't know what universe.
There are too many Spider-Mans.
It's not 616.
I don't know what that is. Is that like the main line, or what's the Marvel Universe one?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is not 616. 616 is the main, I think, comic book one.
Right, but that's not the Spider-Man. I don't fucking know.
And then, like, Black Nick Fury is in the movie Cinematic Universe.
And in Ultimate Marvel, right?
Which is the other, okay. Yeah.
Which one is, in the comic, which one is Miles Morales from?
He's from the alternate one, the one where Nick Fury's black.
Is he from Ultimate Spider-Man? Because he's not from Ultimate Spider-Man.
I think he's...
I think
he's in that universe.
I don't know.
I'm like...
Anyway, point is, this movie was like Star Trek is with mirror universes. There's too damn many of them, and they realized that, and they made a movie, and they didn't even get all of them. They didn't even...
Not even
But
close.
I was happy. Like I was saying this morning before we left, or this afternoon before we left, I was like, there's going to be more stuff. And every time they revealed a character that I was like, wait, is that? Ooh, it is that person. I was like, oh, so good.
Okay, one of my favorite things was when he was going through the contacts on his phone, and you're just like, hey, it's Brian Michael Bendis. Hey, it's Sarah Pacelli.
It's because you're a giant comic stork. Yeah, there were a lot of those little kind of hints at the comics universe. And
the ramen place, what was it? Ramiro?
Oh yeah. Ramita Ramen.
Ramita Ramen.
Yeah. I felt like I didn't have to, because there's like a bunch of that stuff that I knew existed but didn't know anything about. Like, because I played the game, I recognized a bunch of the costumes when they showed the bunch of like Spider-Man. And this is all stuff from the trailers, but I don't think you have to be a big Spider-Man fan going in to enjoy it. Because like for me, like Spider-Man is the cartoon from the 90s and then this game. And then like bits and pieces of the movie Spider-Man. But goddamn, just like every other time I have ever seen a non-Marvel Cinematic Universe thing that was good, I was like, reboot the X-Men, do it good this time, please. Like I want X-Men so bad. I know, but it's because Fox keeps fucking it up. The one that's set in the 60s was okay, and Days of Future Past was all right, and then Apocalypse sucked, and they've just spiraled. And they're gonna make this Dark Phoenix one, and it's gonna suck. I love the X-Men so much. Please make good X-Men stuff. I want that.
Well, it's owned by Fox though, so.
Well, so is Spider-Man.
But they're doing it with Sony.
But right, that's right. Spider-Man is whatever. Listen, it's a tangled web. Have you ever seen that diagram where they show all the characters and who they belong to? There's like one. I think Swamp Thing is like out in the middle of nowhere, owned by someone nobody like cares about. Swamp Thing is
because they probably like laid them all out and were like, okay, let's sell these off. We need to make some money.
Well, Swamp Thing I think was a Constantine, Hellblazer character.
Yeah, it's Vertigo.
And he didn't make it into, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. It might have been something else, but there's this great diagram. I'll try to find it. But seeing it as its own thing, like separate from any of this other horse shit, I felt like it did a really great job giving all the characters like Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker and Miles Morales like all their own space while still being a movie about Miles. Like he was like clearly the protagonist, and it did that thing where like God of War did this, and a lot of games are now, because the people who started making games in their 20s are like getting to be 40 now, and they're like, it's just dad stories. And Peter Parker was totally, there was like dad vibes, but it was good because it wasn't like, I liked his arc. It didn't end the way that dad arcs normally do. I felt like it was cool, and it gave Miles a platform to tell his story from, and I thought that was super cool.
And I also really liked how, like you were talking about, how they worked really well with giving each of the different spider people enough spotlight, and you could tell there were like 3 spider people that were like the main focus of the movie: Peter and Gwen and Miles. Obviously,
yeah, although the least goofy spider people.
And then you had the goofy spider people like Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir was so good.
It was so good.
And Spider-Ham also.
Well, and like,
it's just like a little bit.
The pacing of it is really good. So they didn't, like, this was the problem I had with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. All the jokes from Guardians 1 had like run their course, and they gave Drax and Groot especially way too much screen time, because people thought it was funny in the first one. But the comedic timing in this was so good, and that it was like, here's the joke, it's funny, but we're not gonna like grind it into the earth. Let's move back to the action. And it was just like, the pacing was just like one thing after another without being overwhelming.
And when they re-refer to a joke, it's like 1 second and then done, as opposed to like, let's retell the entire joke over again.
Yeah,
which is
there was actually a really, really good use of repetition in the film. Like they bookended it really nicely, and there were lots of little, like, you'd see something either visually or thematically that would be happening, and you're like, oh, this is reinforcing a thing that we learned earlier. And it wasn't just plot stuff. It wasn't just like, this character feels like this. Here's a thing that shows you. Here's another thing that reminds you they feel like this. It was like teaching us new information based on what we already had about the characters.
Like reinforcing the number 42.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Visually.
No, it was cool. They did a really good job. I was very impressed. It was a super good movie.
I definitely would literally go and see it again tomorrow in 3D.
Right. I'm trying to think of like a superhero movie I liked better, because I consider like best superhero movies like Dark Knight, probably.
It's been a long time since I've watched that.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Dark Knight, like the first Iron Man and the first Avengers movie both. Yeah. Well, because the first Iron Man movie was like, hey, we're gonna try this thing. Is it any good? And then the first Avengers was like the culmination of a few of those. Oh, you know what? I think my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is Winter Soldier.
Oh shit, yeah.
I like that one the best.
That one was really good too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I remember when Winter Soldier was really good, and then I went and saw Civil War, and I was like, is this part 1 of a 2-parter?
Right.
But it wasn't.
Well, there are these like threads that get drawn, and I think that what's happening now almost sort of started with like Guardians in a way, and that Guardians was the first one where they were like, we're just gonna try a new weird thing, and it worked. And then they were like, cool, now we can take some bigger risks with like Black Panther. They're starting to spread out into their stuff. I do wish that the X-Men stuff wasn't so relegated to TV. Like, there's just, like, Legion was fucking awesome.
I still haven't seen
it. It doesn't feel like X-Men to me. Like, I want Professor X, and I want Kitty Pryde, and I want Iceman, and I want Cyclops to be a total douchebag. And I want that, but they're still ringing out those movies, so. But, yeah, do you think they'll make a sequel to this one?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I really do. Because there was this little bit at the end, which we can talk about, not spoilery off camera, where I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, there's a little moment. I feel like that's the one drawback to these kinds of movies where you know that they exist in a greater, like, cinematic world, where you're like, they're gonna make like 10 more of these. It's like we were saying during the previews.
If they take their time and do as good of a job animating the next one as this one, like...
The problem is now we have this split, though, right? Where it's like, Tom Holland is doing his Spider-Man stuff, which means Miles Morales is going to be limited to being only in animated movies from now on. And I don't think a sequel is going to have the same impact as this one does, because
you can't open the same Christmas present twice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like we got hit with that punch, and it was so strong and so, like, right out the gate. But then, like, I feel like a sequel wouldn't. You can't. You've played the note that you have to play. Like, do something different, which sucks because that means Miles Morales. I just don't want him to be B Team Spider-Man forever, right?
He doesn't deserve that.
Right, but I think he's a really interesting character. But it was cool. It was neat to make a Spider-Man movie for both people who are new to the setting of Spider-Man's, and also for people who are like, I won't see it unless Peter Parker's in it, right? That are just like, they have to have that Aunt May, Peter Parker,
God, Aunt May was so cool.
She was super cool.
Yeah,
Aunt May is like boss in this.
She did some kind of like super villain sitting in the like desk chair with the tea, like I've been waiting for.
I love that trope, like, of all the superheroes not having their shit together, and like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has this, right, where it's like, I mean, at least it did at the beginning. I haven't watched all of it, but at the beginning, the initial premise is Agent Coulson is a normal dude surrounded by like weirdo superhero people. I think that probably has slipped somewhat by the wayside, but that kind of thing is so important, right? This is why everybody on the Enterprise can't be Spock, right? If you have too many Spocks, then Spock loses his.
That's where D&D adventure parties lose out, because it's like, well, we have a Triton, we have a Centaur, that's what I've been saying. We have a Furball.
Yeah, it makes them not as important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I like games that are mostly like humans, or like there's a rule in Inspectors that says only one person can be a non-human. Everyone else has to be as normal as possible, because then the normal people make the weird person look extra weird, and the weird person makes the normal people look normal. We had a game that was like a community college dropout, a janitor, a disgraced professor, and a sentient coffee machine that was attached to like a robot, like a drone thing. But you know, like, it's interesting. I thought this was cool, but this movie was very much the, like, it's a bunch of superheroes and they're all Spider-Mans.
Do you want to know a secret?
Yeah, do it.
I'm also a sentient coffee machine.
You know, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Normally, coffee machines make coffee; they don't consume it.
Oh,
it's not a machine you pour coffee into.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought the portrayal of all the characters was great, and it was like they were familiar enough to feel like you knew them, but weird or different enough to be like, oh, cool, this is an interesting, like, adaptation. Like, I won't spoil why, but I loved Kingpin in this. I loved him. And I think it's because I had gotten so used to the Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin, and so used to the, like, even the Spider-Man game Kingpin is a bit D'Onofrio-esque. But this one felt really different. And I love the animation. It reminded me of the old X-Men and Spider-Man cartoons, where they're like, all these people are humans, but they're shaped drastically differently. Yeah. Like, Kingpin, he's a human being, but he's shaped like a refrigerator box. Like, he's just a cube with a face on the front of it.
I actually saw one of the artists I follow on Twitter had a, like, these are all the people in the background that she drew. Oh, and, cool. Like, they paid great attention to, like, different body shapes.
Well, and all the characters are shaped different, too. Like, Miles' dad is kind of triangular, right? He's got the really wide shoulders, and he kind of narrows down. And then Miles, I feel like his head, his hands, and his feet are like bigger than
That's
the
a very
rest of him.
teenagery kind of thing.
Yeah. And then Peter is just a cylinder.
Yeah, and then so many different like people of color, and like the majority of the people you see in the backgrounds, like the background art, it's not white people.
Yeah, well, it's because it's New York.
I know, but it was really nice to see them actually pay attention to and like intentionally do that.
Yeah. Hang on a second. I just want to make sure it's still recording. Yeah. Okay, it just made a weird noise, or I thought it did. Good face. All right, well, let's conclude this thing because we could just talk about it forever. So, Into the Spider-Verse, hella good. I would definitely like to see it again in the theater. We should try to go tomorrow or the next day. Mm-hmm. You should go see it. Check it out in the theater if you get a chance, because it is a fucking visual spectacle.
Definitely.
Unless you own like a giant TV, in which case you're probably okay. But
with
like
surround sound.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And 3D glasses.
And there are so many little bits and pieces that I feel like I'm gonna catch a lot more.
Exactly.
On the next pass.
One of the reasons why I want to see it again, because you'll definitely get more. It's
cool.
It's great.
I am hard pressed to think of a movie that I liked more. I'll say this. So for people who have heard me talk about this other film, I liked Into the Spider-Verse as much as I hated Predator. So there you go. That shows you how much I like it. All right, that's it for us. Movie reviews by Adam and Blue Jay. Spoiler free, Spider-Man times. We will see you next time. Goodbye.